Today, I have for you 6 Dynasty rookie sleepers that you should be paying attention to for the upcoming NFL draft, which is just less than a month away. As always, if you like Dynasty content, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button on this video. I think we're 15 subscribers away from 1,200. Help us get there. Dynasty rookie sleepers. I haven't made a sleeper video for this rookie class yet. I think, I thought about putting one out back in like January, but it's just too early to consider guys sleepers. A lot changes, and kind of early on in the scouting process, it's hard to say like these guys are going to be sleepers. But being less than a month away, doing a lot of rookie drafts, watching a lot of rookie draft content in general, I can safely say that most of these guys are sleepers. I'd be surprised if any of these guys got day 2 draft capital in the NFL. Which means they're probably going to be round 4 to 7 picks at best. And which means they're probably going to be round 4 picks in your dynasty rookie drafts, maybe even waiver wire ads after the draft. But it's always fun to talk about sleepers and guys that, they have some intriguing qualities, guys that I like, that not a lot of people are talking about. And the first one is at the quarterback position. And it's hard to find sleepers at the quarterback position because honestly, if you're not a first round pick, the chances of you hitting are very, very low. And more specifically, if you're not a top 10 pick, the chances of you hitting are extremely low. There's always exceptions to the rule, Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, guys like that. But the NFL kind of says like you're either a first round pick or you're like a day 3 pick. That's kind of, or, round 3 pick or later. And, when it comes to Dylan Gabriel, if there's one quarterback outside of the top 4 guys, which right now is Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, those are the top 3 in my opinion. And then Jalen Milroe, mostly for fantasy purposes because he runs the ball. Outside of those top 4 guys, if I had to choose someone who's going to make a name for himself, be fantasy relevant at times, it's Dylan Gabriel. Again, do I think he's going to be this amazing, top 10 QB1 fantasy quarterback? No, but I'm intrigued by Dylan Gabriel because he has a lot of things that we covet for quarterbacks. Post and pre-snap awareness, which is so important, and the processing that comes with it. You watch him in the pocket, and it just feels natural. His ball placement is really, really good, and which is important for yards after the catch and stuff like that. I think people a lot of times think Yak is more of a wide receiver stat. I think a lot of it, maybe half of it comes from the quarterback and the ball placement. Which is great. Again, his ability in the pocket is awesome. It's just the size for him. And I hate being a sizeist, and I try not to be when it comes to running backs and receivers and stuff like that. But for quarterbacks, it really does matter. It matters for NFL teams. It matters for just the success of quarterbacks. We don't see many quarterbacks this small be successful in the NFL. That's just honesty. And particularly when it comes to hand size, right? Hand size does mean, I know it's funny to talk about, but it does mean something. And we generally don't see quarterbacks with this small hands be successful. There's always going to be exceptions to the rule. But man, Dylan Gabriel is an interesting one. If he gets on the right team that has a good system in place, that knows how to run an offensive system, that knows how to develop quarterbacks, like, would I be shocked? We've seen quarterbacks that are maybe a little bit smaller, don't quite have the arm talent, whatever it is, be successful. Brock Purdy is someone that comes to mind, right? As a guy that maybe doesn't have the best arm talent. Now, I know Brock Purdy is a little bit taller than Dylan Gabriel, but in terms of like the arm talent, but he gets on the right team that knows how to, play to his strengths, then I think Dylan Gabriel could be an intriguing, waiver wire pickup potentially in a Dynasty Superflex League. Moving on to the running back position. I have 3 running backs for you. As we know, this running back class is incredibly deep. Now, this is probably the one player out of these 6 players that if I had to put money on actually going in like the 3rd round, I would put it on Jaden Blue here out of Texas. I've only seen him. I do a lot of rookie mock drafts, and I base them a lot off of 3-round mock drafts out there. I've only seen him mocked in the first 3 rounds, I think once, and it was actually in the 2nd round. And so is there a chance he goes? Yes, because I do think he has a lot of intriguing qualities about him. He played behind guys like Bijan, Roshan Johnson his first couple of years, and then he played behind Jonathan Brooks last year. So he didn't really get an opportunity Jaden Blue until his this season, right? He didn't really get an opportunity until this season. He was playing behind Bijan, one of the best prospects we ever seen at the running back position the last 5 years. Roshan Johnson, who was a 4th-round pick. Jonathan Brooks, who was the first running back taken in last year's draft in the 2nd round. But again, you watch Jaden Blue, man, and I see the potential here. I see the potential for him to be something, particularly, is he going to be a workhorse type of back? I don't think so, but I do think he's going to have a role on a team as like a 1B type of player, as like that explosive change of pace kind of guy. And then could he be more than that? There's a possibility. I think he has a role on an NFL team. And I like to take chances on these type of players that I think I can see their role on a team, because at the very minimum, they're going to have that role. And then what if they're just better, right? Like, what if they're just better than that? Like Bucky Irving maybe was someone that, like, okay, I think he's going to have a role on a team. Can he be a workhorse? Maybe there's a chance, but if it depends on how good Bucky Irving actually is. And then obviously we learned that Bucky Irving was just awesome, right? And he had that role from the beginning. If you look at Bucky Irving, from the beginning, he had a little bit of a role in Tampa Bay's offense. And then it was like, oh, yeah, we need to get the guy the ball more. Could Jaden Blue be someone, like that? I'm not trying to compare him to Bucky Irving, but just in terms of like taking his role to something more. So obviously I love the speed, the 4.38. The 10-yard split for running backs is actually a little bit more important than the actual 40 time. There's some studies that went into wins above replacement when it comes to combine drills, and the 40-yard time is overrated, and it makes sense because guys don't tend to run 40 yards, but the 10-yard splits are important. He has a pretty high 10-yard split. He's in the 87th percentile at 1.52. Very good elusive rating there in his 2024 college season. At 113.1 is basically his ability to break tackles. Breakaway percentage was solid at 40%. That's percentage of his yards that came on runs of 15 yards or more. And I think he is actually a pretty good pass catcher as well. He did catch 42 passes last year. His yards per route run is pretty good for a running back as well, 1.59. So I think I think he has that role, and I think he has that explosive element to him that teams are going to potentially covet. And so if I had to choose someone to be drafted in like the 3rd round, it would be Jaden Blue in this list. So, but even if he's a day 3 pick, keep an eye on him, what team he goes to. And I think he could be like a sneaky player to take a shot on maybe late in the 3rd or 4th round of your rookie drafts. Next up, we have probably my favorite like sleeper in this group. And it's running back Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. And he's an intriguing one. I had him on my list to scout. He was a little bit further down, but I finally got around to watching him. Now, a couple notes about Ja'Cory here is that he played at Alabama State. He started his career at Alabama State. I want to say, I'm double checking here, that he played back in 2019. He spent 2019 to 2022 at Alabama State, which is obviously a lower level school. It's the FCS. It's not the FBS. And so not a lot of people had him on their radar. Then he transferred to New Mexico in 2023. And you see his stats there. I show his 2023 stats at New Mexico, and he had a really good year. Again, is it the best competition? No, but we see plenty of players come out from lower competition, schools that play against lower competition and stuff like that. I mean, Ashton Genty, I know he played, he's at Boise State. He's going to be a top 10 pick, right? He's not playing in the SEC. But you see the stats there, 189 carries, almost 1,200 yards, 17 touchdowns, basically nothing in the receiving game. So he had a pretty big year at New Mexico. And then he transferred to Arizona, and then it was like he was going, I believe, to like Ole Miss, and then came back to Arizona, kind of some weird stuff. Played at Arizona, played in one game at Arizona in 2024, ran for 13 carries, 106 yards, and a touchdown. And then he had some eligibility issues that basically he missed the rest of the 2024 season. So kind of a weird thing going on here with him. So he's not on a lot of people's radars because of it. But man, I when I scouted him, I saw the potential here. 5'11", 208, so he has good size. One of the best broken tackle rates in the entire country back in 2023 at 134.8, which is kind of elite level. Like, I think the highest we've ever seen Generally, if you're above like 115, it's really good, right? And you're approaching 130 plus, you're getting into like elite level. His breakaway percentage shows some of his explosiveness. I don't think he's going to do much as a pass catcher, although, we've seen players who didn't do much in college as pass catchers be able to catch the ball. It's just going to depend on how a team uses him, but really, really intriguing. You see the combine stuff, the 40-yard time, the broad jump. Those are kind of the things that matter when it comes to the broad jump in particular is another combine drill that actually matters for running backs. The 10-yard split, like we mentioned, is more valuable than the 40-yard time. Unfortunately, we don't have a 10-yard split for him because he did his 40 at the pro day. I guess they maybe don't record it or something. I just don't see it anywhere. If anyone in the comments, or if anyone watching this knows, leave it in the comments. But running a 4.45 is good speed. He went to the the East-West Shrine game, and he was the offensive MVP of that game. I think there's something here to him. I do think there's something here to him, and I think there's a chance someone takes a shot on him in the 4th round. And that's going to be really intriguing to me. Again, this is just a guy that no one's really talking about. No one's really talking about out there in the community. You don't see him mocked ever in the top 3 rounds. There's a couple people out there, one of the supporters of our channels, out of Rhythm Sports. They put out really good dynasty content or college content and dynasty content. Check them out. They'll know a little bit more about him because they follow college football a little bit more closely. But man, I'm a fan of what I saw on tape, and he's going to be a guy if he gets round 4, round 5 draft capital, I'm going to take a shot on him in some drafts because I think there's something here, and I just think like we potentially could have saw a big season from him. Could have seen a big season from him if he didn't have those eligibility issues at Arizona. My last running back here is Marcus Yarns playing at Delaware. So another player that played, at a lower school at Delaware. I believe he spent 5 years at Delaware, if I remember, 2020 to 2024, Marcus Yarns. And, obviously Delaware is a little bit of a smaller school, right? A little bit of a smaller school here. And, but I like what I see here. He's a smaller running back, so I don't really expect him to be this workhorse type of guy, but he's just another like sneaky player. One of the best yards per route run numbers you're going to see from a running back at 2.12. Like that's like elite level for a running back. I think a running back generally you want to see about over 1.5 or so yards per route run. If you're over 1.5 yards per route run, then you're kind of in the upper echelon of running back yards per route run. So being over 2 is like legit stuff. And he has a good speed running a 4.45. You see the 10-yard split there, 1.55, a little bit lower than what you expect from a 4.45, but still good in the 74th percentile. So above average for sure. The broad jump, good numbers. The 3 cone, those are the combine drills that mean the most for running backs. 10-yard split, broad jump, and 3 cone. Those are the ones that historically they show the most. Guys who do well in those do well in the NFL and for fantasy and all of that. Not many guys do the 3 cone drill for running backs, so it's nice to see him. Now his 3 cone was really bad in the 9th percentile, but again, we also don't have a lot of 3 cone data because not a lot of running backs actually run it. I don't have the dominator numbers there, and if you're curious what dominator is, and you see it in the I guess it would be top right corner for you, the dominator stuff is basically the percentage of your team's offense, like what percentage of your team's yardage and touchdowns did you account for. We don't really have the numbers here for Marcus Yarns just because it's a little bit harder to find for a smaller school like Delaware. I'm sure I could if I really dug into it, but he was their leading rusher. He was, I think, top 5 in their for their yards and receiving and stuff, and then 11 touchdowns. So I think he was about 20%, if I remember correctly. I don't have the exact numbers. So, but man, he's a guy that I could see having a role. Again, I see him having a role on a team. He can be probably going to be a kind of a pass catcher type of player. I like his initial burst and all of that, but yeah, it's just going to be his ability to break tackles. Doesn't have the greatest elusive rating. Usually the elusive rating like 95 is kind of the threshold. Below that is like below average. 95 is average. Above that, you're starting to get above average. So he's kind of around average there. His breakaway percentage is around a little bit below average for guys that typically hit in the NFL. But the yards per route run is what I like to see, and I think he could have that pass catching role if he gets to the right team. Moving on, I got two receivers for you as we finish up. This is another player that I wouldn't be shocked if he went in the third round. Torrey Horton out of Colorado State, and I do hear people talk about him. So him and Jaden Blue are definitely like, if you don't want to consider them sleepers, that's fine. But it is all, I got to put some guys on there that maybe have some name value, just because it's harder, especially for receivers, to find true sleepers. But Torrey Horton from Colorado State. You see the numbers there, not very impressive for 2024. Well, he missed time. He missed, I think he only played in 6 games. Yeah, he only played in 6 games. So he missed basically half the season at Colorado State, but he was very productive the 2 years before. In 2022 and 2023, had over 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns, 96 catches in 2023, which led his conference. And so, again, you watch the guy play, and it's just like, yeah, I really like Torrey Horton. In particular, you see the numbers down below near his name, yards per route run, drop percentage, all that stuff. The one I really like the most is contested target percentage. That's something I really value for wide receivers. Now, this is adjusted to remove behind the line of scrimmage passes, because if you're getting a target behind the line of scrimmage, the odds of it being contested is very, very low. So that removes all of those. And even still, his contested target percentage is at 15%. Just to put this in reference, usually I want to see this, I'd say like the average percentage for contested target percentage adjusted for behind the line of scrimmage passes removed is around 22, 23%. That's about average. Anything below that is starting to get good. Anything above that is a little bit concerning. It's basically, to me, showing a guy's ability to get open, which is why I really like. I think I value route running the most out of anything, more than speed and size and stuff like that. I really am just a sucker for guys that are really good route runners, and I do think Torrey Horton is a good route runner. I do, and I think that contested target percentage kind of shows it a little bit. Like his ability to get open, 15%. That's really damn good. That is really, really damn good in this draft. So not many guys have that number. And you look at the guys that were successful last year, who had a low contested target percentage. Guys like Ladd McConkey, Xavier Worthy, Ricky Pearsall, who he flashed there at the end. Jalen McMillan had a low one at 13%. We saw him flash. So guys that didn't have a high, that had a high contested target percentage, Marvin Harrison, Keon Coleman, Xavier Legette, Jalen Polk. So, and then there's some guys in the middle there, Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze. They were kind of, slightly above average or right around average, and BTJ and stuff like that. So is it the be all end all? No, there's never going to be one stat we can look at and say, hey, this is why a player is going to be successful. But the yards per route run were really good. His drop percentage, he doesn't really drop passes, which I love. By the way, 5.7% over his entire career. And this is a guy who had over 300 targets in his career. And he did have one outlier season of 10% drop rate. Everything else was like below 5%, which is really, really good. And by the way, he still makes contested catches. So not only is he getting open, but when he is contested, he's catching the ball over half the time, which is a great combination to have. And then finally, we look at the dominator stuff there. For receivers, for running backs, it's their total offense that, it's the team's total rushing and receiving offense. For receivers, obviously, it's just passing yards, receiving yard total. His career is 30%. His single season high, which I believe was in 2022, if I remember correctly, was 58%. He literally accounted for 58% of Colorado State's passing offense, which is insane. Like no one could stop the guy, even though they knew that. Yeah, Colorado State that year threw for 2,300 yards, and Torrey Horton had 1,100 of them. They threw for 12 touchdowns, and Horton had 8 of them. Like, that's insane production there. So, yeah, lower level competition stuff. But, man, just keep an eye on Torrey Horton. I think he could be a sneaky round 3 pick. I hope he gets round 4 capital because outside of like round 4, it's very hard for wide receivers to hit. If you're drafted round 5 or later, it just doesn't happen very often. There's exceptions to the rule, but it doesn't happen very often. The last guy I'm talking about is Ty Felton. And something I like about Ty Felton is just like he kind of dominated at the combine there. You see the combine numbers, 40-yard time, 4.37. That's in the 90th percentile for all receivers, not just this year, but all receivers that are recorded in the database. His 10-yard split is fantastic, 1.51. So he has good initial burst. His vertical, which is another combine drill that's important for wide receivers because it shows their explosiveness. Now, hands and arm, I put his hands and arms there, which, again, as much as we like to joke, it does kind of matter for wide receivers, and it makes sense. You kind of need big hands and long arms as a wide receiver, to catch the ball. They are smaller than we'd like, 31st percentile for hands, 15th percentile for arms. What do I see Ty Felton's role being? Probably as a slot guy, because I think his short area quickness, his burst, his ability to kind of cut and get in and out of route breaks is pretty elite, in my opinion. But like, is he going to play in the slot? Is he going to play outside? I know some people think he can play outside. He definitely has the size for it. So if he can do both, that's kind of the key there. Is if he can play both. If he's only going to be outside or he's only going to be slot, I don't really love his fantasy potential. But if he can play both, then I think that's where you're going to potentially hit on a guy and being a late round sleeper. So when it comes to these guys that I don't think are going to be drafted in the first 3 rounds, I think. Like, I look for guys that are just extremely athletic because those seem to be the guys that are potentially going to hit. And by the way, in college, he played, it looks like about 25% in the slot and then the rest outside. So I can see him not just being a slot guy, kind of moving in and out, but just someone who is productive at Maryland. You see the career dominator up there at 23%. So over the course of, I believe it's 3 years, at Maryland, he accounted for 23% of Maryland's passing offense, and which is great to see. 3 years. His last 2 years in particular were really good, 21% and then 38%. He broke out at the age of 20. Just pay attention to all these guys, really. But Ty Felton, Torrey Horton, Dylan Gabriel at the quarterback position, Jaden Blue, Ja'Cory. Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt at the running back position, and then Marcus Yarn. So appreciate everyone watching. We'll see if these guys hit. It is fun. We'll put out another Dynasty sleeper video probably after the NFL draft, but hope to see you guys in the live streams. Make sure to join our Discord, especially if you want to get into a real money listener league. And also do some rookie mock drafts with us, some startup mock drafts. So appreciate you all, and I'll see you all in the next video.